Hello, welcome to Financial Modeling. My name is Wiz. This is specifically designed for Excel, although there could be many ways to do financial modeling beside Excel itself. Okay, without further ado, about me, my name is Wiz. I have about 5 years of training experience in financial modeling in MATLAB, R, SAS, and Excel, of course. Um, about the financial modeling, I have about 10 years of experience in especially modeling with business startups, retail, and of course some business modeling about the shipping, the mainly various businesses that I'm involved in consulting, and I'm still currently working on various projects that's related to HFT, which is high frequency trading, and the robot advisor for wealth management. My motto for those people who want to learn about financial modeling or anything that's related to financial modeling, you have to really keep learning and experimenting with new innovations. Like you try to use things like macros, to run automation. So, and nowadays, financial modeling is not just about really just purely about Excel. It's also about how you get the information from other systems in the Excel to generate meaningful uh, data modeling. So some of the topics I'm going to cover over the entire course is that we will cover the first module, which is what is financial modeling. This is your we'll cover why do we choose to use Excel instead of other tools, and we try to set the expectations on which tool to um, that we're going to focus on, and what kind of expectation in terms of the rules and the outcomes of the course itself. And next chapter, or rather the next module, will cover about how do you actually build a model. And what's particularly interesting here is that we have identified some of the golden rules and the design issues with Excel modeling. So this is something that you could actually take it away from this course. Okay, in module 3 we go a bit deeper to discover the exact best practices, like we will discuss about how do we do the linking, how do we avoid the bad habits of financial models, and what are the typical formulas we can use, and try to avoid circular references, for instance. Next up, we'll cover more on the financial modeling techniques, such as error avoidance and how do we do the error checks. The next module will cover about Excel shortcuts, very important shortcuts to learn. You can actually perform with shortcuts. You can actually perform your tasks faster. You can even there's a few ways you can actually learn the shortcut, and while staying focused on the screen and the thinking itself. And we actually provide you a cheat sheet that you can access to use your Excel. So no worries, we'll get that for you. Next up, we have Excel functions. We will actually discuss about the use of VLOOKUP, offset, count if, sum if, average if. Excel is not just about all these few formulas. There are actually many other formulas that we can cover for functions. Next up, the next module to cover about Excel advanced tools. We'll actually teach you how to set up arrays, how do you actually do transpositions, how can you actually perform the goal seeking, pivoting, and slicer. Next up, we'll cover about Excel use cases. Some of the use cases that can actually just directly apply. We call it that as the short tips to getting things done. So a few things that we're gonna cover is like a payback period, and how can we do the weighted average cost of capital, how can we do depreciation, example is a straight line. So next one we'll cover about model review. How do you improve the model performance, the memory usage, and the quality assurance? How can you check for problems in your financial models? I think it's been covered earlier, but this module review, you actually, this is an official review stage whereby you get to think and compare and benchmark your models. Next up, you have stress testing, scenarios and sensitivity analysis. So we're going to actually teach you how to actually do that, so no worries about it. Next module we actually cover on how to present your models in the more professional ways and what kind of options that you really have in Excel. So we can teach you about dynamic charts, bubble charts, waterfall, etc. Anything that you can actually think of. Excel models it's not just to create Excel model. There's a lot of the pre-knowledge you actually need to know. So you realize, earlier on we covered most of the technical issues so now we actually cover more to what goes behind those financial models. So business thinking is actually very important because if you're unable to tie the business value back to the financial models, then you have a hard time trying to convince your boss that this is the right financial model to use. Second up, to actually cover more on the business model. There's a few ways you can do it. You can actually know about your business model from the top-down approach or the bottom-up approach. So we'll cover that in more detail during this particular module. In every business that we need to do staffing, right? So basically here we're going to actually go through how do you do financial models with budgeting and how do you actually manage costs. Next up, the very important of business that your boss will be asking you, what's the forecast and sales and revenue model. So we will actually cover that in this module. About the cost of goods sold and inventory model, definitely you're going to learn about how do you do effective model or product pricing and what kind of margin analysis that you can perform. Now when we look at the sales and marketing model, in particular there are some the interesting part is to cover things like commission and how your bonus scheme actually works. So we will try to use our financial model to just cover that. Cost of product development, very important, and we're going to take you from the stage 1 to the last step in product development. And next one we're going to cover about the operating and capital expenditure model. We're going to cover about how to actually plan for it. Then after you do the planning, then you try to develop the model, and finally after you develop model, and we can actually review. So a lot of factors actually comes into play when you come to do the operating and capital expenditure. So we'll cover more in that this module. Profit and loss and cash flow model. This is also very important. You need to model this because you may have a loss at the beginning of the business, but you need to break even, right? So you also need to know where the cash comes in, because when your business need to borrow money from the bank or maybe from the shareholder or from the the equity. So I think that this is really very important to know. And cash flow also means that know how much money being pumped in the different stage. You really need to know that to actually run your business or any kind of project. Valuation and investment model. This is very important. So we're gonna cover about what's the whole purpose behind it to drive strategy. And again, actually later on we're gonna have another chapter that covers more on that. But this is pertaining to business itself. Okay, next up we have the financial report model. Basically, we think that it's very important to know about the financial reporting, especially those standards. We're going to cover about balance sheet. How can you follow all the standards in the international financial reporting standards and the general accepted accounting practices. And has been changing all the while. So I think when we do the financial models, we need to take in consideration what's the latest presentation, uh, um, the standards that we need to take an account for. Okay, next up, without further ado, we're going to also cover about the merger and acquisition model, a very, I think, quite a popular topic. The world now actually changed from just driving purely business sales through marketing efforts and really product development. I think now the businesses in today's is actually more about merger acquisitions. A lot of companies actually has gone to become listed. I mean that if you're big enough, if you go listed, right, you get a cash in. Then you try to expand your business revenue by really investing. So that I think now in the business market there's a lot of consolidation going on. So that's why you see a lot of merger acquisition going on. But of course, the transaction volume of merger acquisition has gone down a little bit. But then that's not for worry, because this merger acquisition is still one of the most a critical survival tool that the big businesses like NMCs will need to have. So I think it's pretty good to know them. And REIT modeling, of course, I think now the most of the property in the market in the world now, I think it's kind of like the transaction is going down. The transaction is going down. It doesn't mean that the market is bad for REITs, especially. So we'll cover about how they actually do modeling. Of course, we're going to cover about some of the latest trends of how the asset management side of the site actually managed to find a strategy out. So we're going to discuss about all these latest topics. Okay, of all above, and thank you and for your time to really go through with me, and I really hope that I can actually see you in my course. And I think that by taking this course, you actually will learn a lot of things. We try to differentiate ourselves by really focusing on the industry relevance and staying updated. So we welcome feedbacks and constructive ideas. And with that, I really hope to see you again. Thank you.